Good afternoon and welcome to day 3 of the Zero Project Conference 2022. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to a fascinating session today entitled Reaching for the Stars, Accessibility in Astronomy. And it is my utmost pleasure to have the Chilean ambassador to the Republic of Austria with us. Big thank you for her time and attention to this very prescient topic today. And also we have our very wonderful moderator from the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, Mrs. Xing Yi Ang, and she'll be moderating us through today's session, which will be 60 minutes and include good practices from Chile when it comes to ensuring accessibility in the field of astronomy. Without further ado, I would like to pass on to Mrs. Ang, but before I do that, I'd like to give a brief verbal description of myself for those of you who can hear me, but perhaps not see me. I'm a white male in his early 30s. I'm wearing a blue dress shirt with a dark green tie, and I have a cast on my right hand due to a recent hand injury, and I have, unfortunately, a receding hairline because that is what happens as you get older. And that is my verbal description, and now I'd like to introduce, as mentioned, our moderator, Mrs. Ang from the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs.
Thank you, Robin, for the wonderful introduction. Hello, and a very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Xing Yi, and I'm from the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. It is a pleasure to be your moderator today. For this panel, we will be talking about astronomy. Astronomy is an amazing science. It has the unique ability to inspire and to unite humankind. However, astronomy tends to be a visual subject. A lot of people are not able to see the beautiful images of stars and galaxies or to have equal access to information. There are still barriers to equal access to education for many people with disabilities around the world. However, we know that with accessible technologies and techniques, we will be able to make education more inclusive to all. And on this note, I am very delighted today to have 4 experts to tell us more about their experiences in fostering accessibility in astronomy. Today, we have with us Director Simonetta Di Pippo from the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. We are also delighted to welcome Ambassador Belén Sapag, Ambassador of Chile to Austria and Permanent Representative of Chile to the United Nations in Vienna. I'm also happy to welcome our professional astronomer, Erika Labbé, Outreach Coordinator at the Diego Portales University in Chile. Last but not least, María Argudo-Fernández, Adjunct Professor at the Catholic University of Valparaiso and President of the Astronomical Society of Chile. Without further ado, let's welcome Director Simonetta Di Pippo, who will share her opening remarks via a recorded video. Please, thank you.
Distinguished participants, dear colleagues, welcome to a panel discussion, Reaching for the Stars, Accessibility for Astronomy. I'm grateful for the opportunity to open this important session. Inclusion is a core value of the United Nations, and we assign considerable importance to advance the realization of the human rights of all persons with disabilities. This is the precondition to a sustainable, peaceful, secure, and equal future for all. Today, there are more than 1 billion people with disabilities, and the number is likely to grow due to an increase in chronic diseases and other factors. The COVID-19 pandemic is an unfortunate manifestation that we have plenty of work ahead of us. But what are some of the problems we encounter? Persons with disabilities face societal discrimination, stigma, and other forms of barriers in education, employment, scientific research, and other areas. We collectively must ensure that persons with disabilities are the beneficiaries of the outcomes of the work of the United Nations. They must also be an important part in developing solutions, decisions, and policies which shape the future. We can only create a just and equal society if all voices are heard, considered, and nurtured. Inclusiveness is about creating environments that value differences and celebrate the diversity of backgrounds, views, skills, and physical capabilities. This is especially important in creative and innovative domains, including the space sector. In this context, the Office for Outer Space Affairs is fully committed to advancing efforts in building the future we want, where everyone everywhere has equitable and fair access to the benefits of space technology. Our philosophy is twofold. We look both at the bigger picture, bridging the space divide between countries, and our efforts are also reducing inequalities at individual level. Such an approach allows contributing to a range of sustainable development goals with SDG 10, reduced inequalities, as the central focus. This way, we streamline the availability of space solutions and access to space-relevant education and careers in alignment with the principles and framework of the United Nations Disability Inclusion Strategy. Through the Space for People with Disability project, we envision engaging these groups in all aspects of space science. One example is internship opportunities at UNOOSA involving persons with disabilities. Also, we work with specialized agencies to facilitate and raise awareness of initiatives focused on promoting inclusivity in space. Astronomy, the theme of today's session, has a special appeal in this context. It is a subject that fascinated people at all ages, cultures, and abilities. Myself, I'm still passionate about space every single day after 4 decades in the business. Testing and employing accessible technologies and techniques in astronomy, we can advance inclusion, broaden participation in science, and improve scientific literacy among people with disability. I'm thrilled to see many local, national, as well as international efforts advancing these goals. The space community has taken great strides to improve the accessibility of astronomical education and outreach in recent years. The examples you will hear today are an apt reminder that through dedication, we can achieve great things. The work that will be presented by Chile is truly an inspiration, yet the work remains far from done. To ensure meaningful participation of persons with disabilities, we must step up in both the design and development stages of the work. We are, however, in a great position. Connecting has never been easier, and partnerships and international cooperation helps us advance. If we work together, limits are just an illusion. Ambitions and dreams truly have no boundaries. UNOOSA stands ready to expand the Space for Persons with Disabilities project and engage in new projects and initiatives for disability inclusion. Let's continue this journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for introducing the USA Space for Persons with Disabilities project and for setting the stage for today's discussion. Next, it is my pleasure to welcome Ambassador Sapag for her opening statement. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. And as Robin has said, we have to describe ourselves. Just to let you know that I'm an elderly woman, over 50, with a lot of white hairs and a little bit of knowledge on astronomy, only a little. We want to share the experience of Chile as an astronomic country, as a natural landscape for astronomy. So I'm going to make some points so that just to encourage you to follow up on what has been the long-standing tradition of Chile's observatories. Nowadays we have more than 17 observatories all along our country. We are going to be showing some slides that have been facilitated by the director of the the European Southern Observatory, a close friend of the mission and of Chile, Javier Barzons. But for those who cannot see the slides, it's a vast territory, a lot of mountains, very clean and clear skies. So I will share a little bit of our experience. As I was telling, Chile is par excellence a natural laboratory. Its extensive territory, its summits and its plains provide the perfect setting for the observation and study of outer space. Today, we have more than 40% of the world's large telescopes, and growth is projected in the short term, which will allow us to have almost 80% of the world's optical and radio astronomical observation capabilities by 2025. Now, for my country, Chile, curiosity about the sky and the infinite extension is a fundamental piece of our cultural heritage. The different peoples who inhabited our country spent much of their time observing and describing the bodies, figures, and movements that made up the spatial scenario. Today, we want to transmit this scientific curiosity to girls, boys, and young people training in the future, women and men of science, and that this training is inclusive and accessible, as Ms. Di Pippo has said. Chile values and recognizes the benefits of technological development in the satellite field. We have somebody, I think, from Google here, and we know that satellites are of the essence. But at the same time, now we have been confronted to very big constellations, satellite constellations, that contaminate our pure, dark, and quiet skies for this work and observation. So what Chile has been trying to do is just to put both areas, the space industry and the astronomic community, to talk to each other and to discover ways to make satellites, space industry more sustainable and more respectful of the dark and quiet skies, which are the skies that we need for observation. In this way, we recognize this need, advancing through the implementation and constant revision of the emission standard of the regulation of light pollution that Chile and other countries have been implementing since the 90s, and whose update has been done in Chile in 2020, included the recommendations of the report of the Conference on Protection of Dark and Still Skies that took place in Spain in La Palma. And in this regard, I want to share what we have been doing in the UN. In the UN, well, Xing is part of this Office of Outer Space, but then there's also a subcommittee on science and technology. And in that subcommittee, Chile, Austria, Slovakia, the Dominican Republic have introduced an item to make the scientists and technicians study the dark and quiet skies. And this will help us create this tandem between the space industry and the astronomers. This was done a few weeks, I think, no, 1 week ago, I think, if I'm not wrong. And we're so happy because this item will create further dialogue. And in this dialogue, we would like to incorporate accessibility and inclusiveness so that people with disabilities or with different abilities may have access to the observatories, to the learning of astronomy, and there can be synergies. Accessibility for this 50% of society is very important. Chile already has two strong legislation that implement the Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities, which is very dear to my heart because I was one of the drafters of the convention as a delegate of Chile in those days. And Article 9 was a very strong point in the convention, which we had to fight a lot for. And civil society, you were the ones that helped us to draft this important article, which now signifies that countries like Chile have implemented legislation on education, on labor markets. Chile has one, a very recent one, 21015. That means that we have to hire all those companies with 100 people or more need to have 1% of people with disabilities. We have to open the access for this labor market, private and public sector. So that's very important because it also tackles astronomy. Yes, that's a very big thing that we're promoting, because sometimes that 1%, we cannot reach that 1%, and now obviously the discussions ongoing on the pandemic have shown that there has been a certain drawback on this. But at the same time, all these new technologies have been useful, and we believe that in the area of education and astronomy, we can make a very very strong advancement with the help of Google and other mechanisms. There are a lot of platforms. Now we have a lot of bloggers. I want to mention Serafina Nash from the US. She's incredible, and they teach children about astronomy. We have also in France Erika Labbé, who teaches in French. He's in the Nice Observatory, and he also uses technology. The European Southern Observatory, SCAO also has a lot of research and blogs regarding the matter. We have the Vera Rubin Observatory from the US that's going to be established in Chile. Yeah, it's being developed. And then I would like to say that also for the planetariums. We have 2 planetariums, and we have a new one. It's in Mamayuca, in the north of Chile. And also we want to disseminate the accessibility. And now the accessibility for astronomy also has to needs this support of technology, because sometimes we cannot have access. For example, in the case of the diplomats in Chile, we generally go to Paranal, which is it's an amazing observatory by the European Southern Observatory Organization, which is a partner of Chile and many European countries and other researchers from all around the world. And it's very, very high up in the mountains. So sometimes, you know, elderly women like myself, sometimes we have a little bit of trouble, you know, accessing those landscapes. So accessibility through this new technology is very important. Sometimes we don't have to move. We just need a very good iPhone, and we just can travel through the stars, and also by sound. So just to maybe just cut this presentation, I would just want to share with you that Chile not only has ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities, was one of the first ones to sign, but then also the Inter-American Convention, which was, you know, the starter for this movement. And we have been very active in the Inter-American space also, promoting this initiative, and we hope to have more Latin American countries, you know, getting on board, because many students also work with their observatories. So I'll be ready to answer any questions, and I just, you know, and on my personal view is that we need civil society, whether you're interested in astronomy, whether you're interested in space industry, which is the big thing right now. You know, we are seeing everybody going to space. We have research on space mining. But we need to be there, and we need also to be watchful, so that there's inclusion, accessibility, and at the same time that we can give sustainability to our skies, so that we can be very supportive of this. I want to thank also the Permanent Mission of Spain. They are great partners. They also supported this initiative on dark and quiet skies, and they do a lot of research in their observatory in La Palma, and they also have very interesting platforms which you can also follow daily. So thanks a lot, and I'm ready to answer if there are any questions. And greetings to my counterparts in Chile, that they have been instrumental in accessibility in astronomy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for highlighting the important role of astronomy and space technologies in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Indeed, as an excellent natural laboratory, Chile is in a unique position to expand astronomical research and education, including for persons with disabilities. And with that, it is my pleasure to welcome Erika Labbé online to tell us more about her projects. Erika, The floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Erika Labbé. I am an astronomer, and I'm here to tell you more about what is inclusive astronomy or accessibility in astronomy here in Chile, at least for the last years. So, as I told you, I'm an astronomer. I'm also an astronomer and an outreach coordinator in UDP, Universidad Diego Portales in Chile. I'm also currently leading the Astronomy Inclusiva group. And you can see both logos here in the image and see also a picture of myself. Next, thank you. And I was planning to introduce you a bit about astronomy in Chile, but our ambassador did a much better work than me, so I think we can pass this more quickly. Something that I have to tell you that actually is really important how the public loves astronomy in Chile, because we have a lot of news talking about astronomy, mentioning Chile as a fount of big discoveries. So that is very exciting for us, and astronomy is a big issue here in our country. Here you can see a picture also of one of these big observatories, a radio astronomy observatory, ALMA. In the picture, there is about 10 of the 66 antennas of ALMA, from 12 to 7 meters each in diameter. And those are under a wonderful dark sky. It's very beautiful, the sky. You can see the Milky Way is a wonderful picture indeed. Next, thank you. But what is inclusive astronomy? What does it mean? For me, it was a big challenge about 5 years ago when someone told me to talk about astronomy without images. My brain was sick for about 2 weeks, trying to think what to do. And with the time, we found a solution. We started to work with more people. It was a very amazing develop of what happened with this, and now for me it has a great potential. It's very impressive what can you do when you think about how to explain astronomy without images or without sound, or thinking about different people who can understand the world in a different way. It's very important, and which is more important for science is all that creativity, all these different points of view can be really good for science itself. Science needs to have their very different points of view for the same problem, a lot of creativity, and people who has lived in a different way to everyone else has a lot of creativity and new idea. So at the end, it's not something that you can share with a specific group of people. It's not like you can give them astronomy, but it's also something you can invite them to participate and get their ideas and start to make science even better. In the process, we also discovered that everything that we did for people with disabilities likes everyone, not only that group of people with disabilities, but people who cover their eyes and have an experience for BBI people is for all. It's really powerful how it happened, how impressive can it be? Next slide, please. In this picture, you can see a blind person holding an ALMA antenna paper model, 12 centimeters wide. It's really small, but beautiful. And it was during an activity that we did, the first one actually, in the Central Library for the Blind at Santiago de Chile. Next slide, please. But, well, we also have learned with all this time that this inclusion in astronomy should be addressed at all levels. It's a work that has to be done for the little kids in education, for the young people who want to study in universities, for example, for research. We have to open research to people with disabilities because now it's very visual indeed. And of course, outreach. Outreach is a lot of fun to make outreach accessible. And thanks, I'm really happy to say that we are not alone in this. With the time, there have been coming a lot of people from about 25 institutions collaborating in this astronomy inclusive group that I told you. And here in the image, you can see about 24 logos from different telescopes, different universities, projects, a lot of people who belong to this institution and work in this group together as a inclusive astronomy group. In the group also, there is people not coming from astronomy, also, I don't know, artists, people with disabilities, from the social sciences, from everywhere. It's very diverse, the group. I'm really happy to say that all of us are really interested in make science more accessible. Next, thank you. And in this image, you can see a very first zoom of two people touching a tactile model of the solar system during that first activity that I told you in the Central Library from the Blind. And it's that model specifically is very impressive how can you move people, even astronomers, people who are studying astronomy, go through this model with their eyes covered, and they were very impressed by the information in this model. So something as simple as you can see is very powerful as a tool in teaching astronomy. Next slide, please. And I want to highlight some very specific moment in this develop because it was very powerful and makes a lot of difference in the developed inclusive astronomy in Chile. It was the three solar eclipses we had the last years. There was the first one in the 2019. We had the pleasure of have a donation from International Astronomical Union of a lot of light sound devices, which is a very small device, like something like a mobile maybe, with a light sensor that transformed the intensity of light into sound. So when the light was more intense, before the eclipse start, the sound was very high pitch. And then during the eclipse, when the light start to go down because of the moon covering the sun, the sound also start to go down and down and down, and pitch was very low until it completely disappeared during the totality. So that device, which was developed by Harvard University and one of the astronomers I admired most, Wanda Diaz-Merced, that device came to us as a donation. We used it in that first year. We did about 10 different events along Chile using the device, inviting people with disabilities, but everyone else could hear that device also. Here you can see pictures of the event that we did in the UDP.
Hi, Erika. Thank you so much
Hi.
for sharing the wonderful projects that you're working on. It's really amazing to see what you're doing, and we hope to circle back to you for more information during the Q&A session. If I may, I would like to move on to the next speaker, Maria, to tell us more about the Breaking the Barriers project. Maria, over to you, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, everyone. I'm going to highlight the initiatives to create inclusion and accessibility promoted by the Chilean Astronomical Society. So in my first slide, I'm presenting myself. I'm María Argudo-Fernández. I'm a doctor in astrophysics at the Institute of Physics of the Catholic University of Valparaiso, where I teach and research about galaxy formation and evolution. I'm also the current president of the Chilean Astronomical Society, where one of my goals is to make astronomy accessible to everyone. I'm also part of the Chilean Astronomía Inclusiva group, coordinated by Erika. You can see the logos here and a picture of myself. I'm a smiling brunette with long hair. Now it's a bit shorter. So I would like to explain how I get involved in astronomy, inclusive astronomy, and it was thanks to the AstroBBI project. This is an inclusive astronomy project founded by the International Astronomical Union Office of Astronomy for Development. You can find all the information about the project in the links, and I'm going to highlight 5 activities carried out with the project, showing some pictures taken during those activities. So the kit is composed of 6 tactile images of 5 galaxies. In the next slide, I'm showing a picture. 5 galaxies with different morphological types, accompanied by color and black and white images of each galaxy, an audio and text descriptions of the tactile exploration for each galaxy. The project also provides a set of lessons and activities to carry out with the kit. All the materials are available in Spanish and Portuguese. For an English version, we recommend to visit the Tactile Universe project, who inspired me for this project after meeting his PI with a tactile image prototype of one of the galaxies during a conference in the year 2016. So in the next slide, I'm going to show, as I say, the kit is accompanied with activities which help the AstroBBI teachers to introduce complex concepts as galaxies. We create 100 of this kit that we send for teachers mainly in Latin America. We start introducing distances, working with size and distance scale models of planets of the solar system, as it is shown in the right images that I'm showing. The children also create 3D models of a spiral galaxy, as can be seen also in the left images. And then guiding the students to observe and interpret the tactile images of the galaxies, where the teacher can easily explain the different types of galaxies in the universe. In the next slide, I'm showing a picture of one of the activities carried out by one of the AstroBBI teachers. The activities that we provide with the kit are designed in a way that can be carried out with any kind of public. Our AstroBBI teachers also run these activities with children with their eyes closed, for instance, as it is shown in the image, to generate empathy among other children. In the next slide, I'm showing another way we have been using this kit. For instance, we have been present in many astronomy-related events with small exhibitions. In these cases, the event organizers advertise that there will be activities for all public and send invitations to centers and organizations that work with the BBI community, helping us to reach a bigger audience. During these exhibitions, we welcome all public, from children to adults, to interact with the tactile material and creating their own distance scale model of the solar system. The audio guides help the BBI audience to observe the tactile imaging, especially in this kind of massive and noisy events sometimes. In the next slide, I'm showing also some activity that we have been doing with the kit. The kit activities are easily adaptable to any public. For instance, we have used silicon molds of the tactile images to create cast models that children can paint. So we also use the activity to explain them how we create the tactile images to explain galaxies to BBI children. We have also used the material with children with different disabilities in activities like the Chilean Day of Astronomy. In this case, as it is on the left image, we use only tactile models of planets to work on size and calling their attention using big projected images of planets. I have used this material even in my classes at the university for students on physics pedagogy, so they can replicate and adapt in their classes. In the next slide, I'm showing that a picture of myself during the Latin American regional meeting of the International Astronomical Union in 2019, where we presented an interactive poster. So professional astronomers in all Latin America could also know the project and explore galaxies with their own hands. And who knows, maybe one of them gets inspired to start astronomy inclusion project as well. So in the next slide, I'm going to talk a bit more about the motivation and the description of the activity that we do in Chile. So as Erika previously introduced, inclusion and accessibility must be addressed at all levels, from outreach to education to professional astronomy. This is why the Chilean Astronomical Society, SOCIAS, created the Gender and Inclusion Working Group, composed of SOCIAS members. The working group is in charge of observing inclusion, diversity in astronomy activities carried out in Chile, making recommendations to the board of new policies or practice that increase inclusion, as well as assisting in its implementation in the case that is necessary, and making a series of recommendations of good practices to be taken in consideration by the partners and in their academic and research activities. The group is also in charge of elaborating an evaluation the demographic census of the astronomical community, including for the first time aspects related to diversity. So in the next slide, I'm showing one of the activities carried out by the working group that has been possible thanks to the support of the ALMA and its joint committee funds. One of the goals is to train the members of the astronomical community and related science on inclusion and accessibility. For instance, with a workshop of basic Chilean sign language, free of charge for professional scientists. It is supposed to show a video. I think maybe it's not working. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if it's working or not. But the video shows us in one of our virtual sessions where we are practicing our sign. Well, one of the SOCIA's projects that I would like to highlight is the project led by María Fernanda Durán. She has a master's degree in astronomy and works as SOCIA's executive assistant, and she has been deeply involved on the SOCIA's outreach activity. Now, she is currently the Chilean National Outreach Coordinator of the International Astronomical Union, leading a group of professional and amateur astronomers that work on astronomy outreach. She is also the leader of the Breaking the Barriers project. This is a project that started in 2016 and is a project funded by the ISO Chile Joint Committee that seeks to support inclusive efforts in different astronomical outreach activities. The project is in current version, led by María Fernanda Durán and Sonia Dufo from AUI and RAO.
Hi, Maria. This is Xing Yi.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, hi, this is Xing Yi. So thank you so much. And I can see that there is a lot of work that needs to be done to make astronomy accessible to more people. And at this point in time, I would say that this discussion here is just one step in a long journey ahead of us. And at this point in time, may I also bring onto the panel Erika so that we can have a roundtable discussion. You know, for many of us here, the audience, working in the field of accessibility, perhaps a lot of us are interested to find out from the both of you who are practitioners in this field, how do you ensure the meaningful participation of persons with disabilities in the conceptualization, design, development, and implementation stage of your project? Are there any challenges or difficulties that you face, and how do you overcome them? I think we would be very happy to listen to some of your lessons. Perhaps, Maria, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, actually, your question is very related to what I was going to talk about. So thanks, for example, for this Breaking the Barrier project. We have been able to include accessibilities in our outreach activities in pandemic, because thanks to the project, for instance, we can include a sign language interpreter in every activities. Many of them have been carried by Erika, or adding an interpretation in videos, and it's a lot of material and very high quality and activities carried out by professionals in astronomy that are totally accessible to people with hearing impairment.
And how about Erika?
Hi,
Erika?
yes. There is a lot of challenge from the point of view that people, for example, with visual impairments that I've been working most, they are not used to see or look for astronomy content. So you have to reach them first. And in the process, sometimes you meet people who have a bad experience before with some, I don't know, enterprise or someone who tried to reach them first for some specific thing. And they test you a lot. Like they try to see if you really want to share something with them, or are you looking for something back, or it's a trustful relationship that you have to build with them, with their communities. So that's a challenge. I'm happy to say that we've been succeeding lately in that challenge. We have a very nice group of people working with many of us in a specific workshop that we did last year during the pandemic, an online workshop, which was another challenge to do with people with visual disability. But I will say after you cross that line, after you get their trust, it's very easy. They are very collaborative. They want to participate. They want to give you their opinion. It's very work very collaborative. They participate a lot. So that's very good. It's very good to invite them from the beginning to create a new experience, to think about how education had to be. I really want to work more in research, which is a bit more difficult because in Chile, at least, we don't have too many people. Maybe there is someone that I don't know studying physics or astronomy with some disability, and we need to open the path for them to choose this path, you know. So it's something that has to be work, something that needs time and a lot of action from everywhere, from people with disability to trust us, for us to learn how to open their paths for these conversations that always surprise us. So sometimes you think they need something, but then they told you, no, I need something else. For me, all that is a very interesting project, but needs work, needs energy, and needs a lot of people. Until now, it has been working, and we have to keep this in time. That's what I think.
Yeah, thank you, Erika. I think you mentioned something very important over here. You talk about getting the trust of the people that we work with. And I think that is an important point that practitioners like us have to take into account when we do our projects. Perhaps you could also tell us more about how do you attract persons with disabilities to your activities? Well, astronomy is fun, but people can be shy. They don't know how to go to these activities or where are the resources to participate in these activities. Could you perhaps share with us your experiences in getting or attracting persons with disabilities to your activities? How do you reach out to the community? Perhaps, Erika, you would like to go first, and then Maria?
Okay, sure. Well, before the pandemics, we went to their places. You know, this Central Library for the Blind was the first place where we did one of these activities because they were there already. They don't have to go somewhere else for us. And that's a very important thing if you want to, you know, be kind in the sense that not imposing thing, no imposing a new place to reach some difficulty in, I don't know, traveling or whatever. You are just going where they already met and do the activity there, which I think is a very good practice in once pandemic is finished, hopefully soon. And otherwise, I don't know, I've been working a lot on trying to contact the schools of people with disability or the groups, you know, by talking with them. But also I've seen the experience of Maria, who made a very good web of teachers. She can tell you more about that, but that's very impressive too. And also from another group, Telescopia, a couple of young astronomers and physicists. And they went to many places around their area in the south of Chile. And they know a lot of people with disability because they've been visiting every place. So that's very important, is go to them and try to show them that you not only are there to teach them something, but also to learn from them. I think that's very valuable, not only with people with disability, but also with teachers, also with anyone else who's not coming from astronomy. It's in outreach, specifically in education, you need to learn from them. I need to learn a lot from teachers or from artists or from other people who has these tools that I don't have, and to invite them to be part of the process. I think that's very valuable, and it's something that you have to do. I think that's my answer.
Yeah, thank you, Erika. Thanks for reminding us that education is two ways, and education can come from people in different ways. At this point in time, Maria, would you like to tell us how do you reach out to the community, and perhaps share with us your experiences in scaling up the project from being just a project for one locality to something that is perhaps regional or international? Over to you, Maria.
Yes, I think that the key of these are two things. The first is that, so to reach the people, that the first is to consider that there has to be a continuous work. You cannot plan an activity and doing only once. That is not the way to reach people. You have to do a continuous work. And the second is to realize that you cannot do everything. So you need help and need more people to reach where you cannot reach. So that is the motivation behind the AstroVBI project. We can carry out the activity, we have carried out the activity, but we contact other teachers and we did some workshops to train them to carry out the activities. So that's how you spread the message, and you can reach where you cannot do in other way.
Right, thank you, Maria. So at this point in time, talking about what's happening at the macro scale, I would like to perhaps turn to the ambassador. Ambassador, could you perhaps tell us more about the national policies that the Chilean government is implementing to broaden the participation of persons with disabilities in astronomy, and what is being done to build up human capital in astronomical research?
Well, thank you. I just wanted to brief a little bit on how, going back to the other question, how can we incorporate people with disabilities into this agenda? In my personal case, it doesn't have to be someone with a disability or with a different ability. It's the fact that astronomy has to do with health, has to do with mental health, with our senses, it has to do with climate change, it has to do with natural disasters. So whenever you open your window in the morning, you feel the sun. Whenever there's an eclipse and you feel that the breeze is coming because you don't have the sun anymore for a few minutes, then you're experiencing astronomy. So that is something that we have to do from the get-go, from home. So if we don't have access to these knowledgeable people, we can do it at home. But going back to what we have done, I just touched on two legislations. We had one that implements the convention and tackles a lot of points that are within the convention, but we have culture, we have education, we have inclusive cities, architecture, etc. So Chile has made quite an enormous change. I would say that also we had an opportunity because we had a very big earthquake in 2010. And then, we had to reconstruct. We already had the convention, so the new constructions came along with this added value, So we have made those changes, and now we have this other legislation that has to do with the labor force, with people, private, public sector. So I think that those would be pivotal. We have a national service for people with disabilities that are working hard on that, but on astronomy, accessibility on astronomy would be culture, it would be access to science. The Ministry of Science is working closely with Senaris. They work closely with the Universidad Diego Portales, with what Erika has mentioned on the eclipse. So we had accessibility. And now all the observatories, we have these joint ventures with these big, huge observatories from the ESO. We have, as I mentioned, observatories, the Vera Rubin from the US, which obviously obviously here we also intertwine it with gender because, for example, now we're going to have this big observatory with the name of a woman, which is fantastic. And Vera Rubin was quite, I think, forgotten in the US, and now that, there's a revival, there are very good books about her that have come out recently, and these, many bloggers also have brought have brought the attention on gender and astronomy, because what happens is that we can have women in mathematics, in astrophysics, but sometimes they cannot have access to the workplace. So I would say that those are things that we need to take a look at. And don't forget that there are two committees that are important. It's a committee on the rights of the persons with disabilities that gathers, and there we have a very interesting space where we can tackle education and astronomy. And then the COPUOS, which I said that we're working on dark and quiet skies. And I just want to say that recently the International Astronomic Union, which is a close partner of Chile and many other countries, has launched this Center for Dark and Quiet Skies. Benvenuto, an astronomer that's working in Italy, but also with the International Astronomical Union, has brought up this center, and he's heading this center. So I would suggest also to take a look. And finally, I just wanted to say what has been mentioned by art, because next year we would have art as a theme of the conference, and there's a lot of material on astrophysics, photography, that it's very reachable, and thanks also to these new technologies and to Google and all the hashtags, etc. So that I would say that's kind of wrapping up, and the SDGs obviously that have been mentioned. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador, and thank you for highlighting the concept of intersectionality. So when we think about diversity, it's not just about disability, but we look at other dimensions such as gender, and also for highlighting the very important role of international collaborations and partnership. And now, before we go, let me have one last question for all three panelists. Before we go, could you give an advice to all of us here as practitioners? For someone who's just new to the field of astronomy and accessibility, what would you say to someone who's just starting out? What can we do to begin and to take a first step into accessibility and astronomy? And if I may, I would like to first start with Ambassador, since you're already here. What advice do you have to young people like us?
Yes, what I would say is just like, Eleanor Roosevelt always said that human rights were made at home, from the core of home. So accessibility is a human right. The convention is a convention on human rights. So I would say that start at home, start for practitioners and also for people interested in the matter. You have to start at home with small things. We have a lot of means there at home. If you're connected, you have the means to and accessibility, but at the same time, we need to be watchful because there's a lot of information that it's not duly accessible. So we have to try and make that point. We can write an email, we can leave a voice message and say, look, we want this to be different. So I would say that we can be agents of change from home. I would suggest that because astronomy is every day. You open the window, you can look or you can feel the weather, and that has to do with the constellations and what's going on in outer space. So I would suggest, from the core, as I said before.
Thank you. How about Erika? What advice do you have for us?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions that we have sometimes about some disability. So I will say that if you want to work on some accessibility in some specific disability, go and meet someone with that disability. It's really important to talk with the person, with the people, to learn from them, to ask them what they want, because you will be surprised. And another piece of advice in the same sense, choose one disability first, because when you start to think about diversity in the way the people perceive the world is infinite. So it can be very complicated at first if you want to cover them all. Just one, start simple, and know your public. That's my advice.
Yeah, thanks, Erika. As people always say, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So always start small and start at home. And finally, to Maria, in just one sentence, could you give us your last piece of advice?
Yeah, I think that my 2 cents are very aligned with Ambassador, that inclusion is an everyday job. So just think about what is your daily, every day at work, and only 3 things, simple things that you can do to create a more welcome environment around you. It's that simple, and it's an everyday job. You cannot do only once. It's a way of life, just considering everyone.
Thank you, Maria. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's panel discussion. I would like to thank the speakers, Ambassador Sapag, Maria, and Erika, for the extremely stimulating discussion today. Today's discussion is about astronomy, and astronomy is a science for all, and it is all inclusive to all. And I hope that today's discussion has opened the door to more better opportunities for accessibility in the future. So with that, thank you for your participation, and I wish all of you a good day for the rest of the conference. Thank you and see you again. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good day.